Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the 2025 Subaru Impreza. But more specifically, this is the RS, or Rally Sport trim level, and it's in my favorite Subaru color, which is ice silver metallic. But although this is the ralliest of the Impreza lineup, it's not perfect, so today I get to share the good, the bad, and the ugly of this subcompact little crossover hatchback to help you guys at home decide if it might be the right vehicle for you. So you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts. And huge thanks to the Twin Falls Subaru for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below if you're interested because they sell below MSRP, they ship all over the country, and with that said, let's dive right into this review. And if you like Subaru, the Impreza, or my video, please be so kind to consider liking my video. Basically, that lets me know you want to watch more stuff like this. It helps the video get shared, and it'll help you by having the YouTube choose to show you more stuff. Thank you so much. But if you're new to Subaru, or the Impreza, there's a few things that you need to know. Subaru is a Japanese automaker. Currently, by Consumer Reports, they are rated #1 in probable reliability for this year. But they didn't start making cars until the 1950s. They didn't come to the United States market until the 1960s. And the Impreza has really gone through a lot of changes since its inception back in 1992. So this is now the 6th generation of the Impreza, which came out last year for 2024. It really wasn't a huge revision over the last generation. It lost the sedan variant. They're only offered in wagons now, but it has a few things going for it that are highly favorable, highly desirable, and a few things that it's missing. So what is going for it? Well, it is extremely safe. Top safety pick, has really bright LED headlights. Very safe, very adaptive cruise control lane keep assist. That works a lot better than a lot of the other automakers' version of their current system. But what's missing? Well, RS is supposed to stand for Rally Sport. And sure, it might look the part with the red badges, the red little RS in the instrument cluster, and these big 18-inch black wheels, but it only has the basic 2.5-liter non-high revving boxer engine that you get in all the other basic level Subarus like the Legacy, the Outback, and the Forester. And it's really not, a performance-inspired engine. Something like the 2.4-liter from the BRZ and the GR86, that boxer engine would have been perfect in this platform. Heck, I even would have paid an extra $1,000 for it. But this vehicle, being the current generation Impreza, it no longer is what the platform that the STI and WRX are built off of. The STI has also disappeared. The WRX is its own model. So now that the Impreza is only the Impreza selling between the base model, the sport model, and this RS model or trim level, it only sells around 30,000 units in the United States every single year, but they're also sold in Japan and Canada. This specific example, like most Imprezas, they are assembled in Japan before being shipped to the United States market, which is honestly pretty cool. But what does it cost? Well, a base model starts at around $25,000, which is quite a bit more than these were just a few years ago, back when they started just below $20,000. And the RS, it starts at $28,500. But after destination, after delivery, after all the extra options that this one has on the window sticker, MSRP is actually all the way up to about $32,000. And then it is marked off about $1,500 from Twin Falls Subaru, hence why they're linked below. But it's not cheap. But what do you get for that price point? You get the 182 horsepower 2.5-liter boxer engine, which again, I was hoping for more, but that is a substantial upgrade over the 152 horsepower 2-liter found in the base and the sport trim level. You also have these really nice black 18-inch wheels, and they're wrapped in a tire that actually has substantial tread depth, and it's a quality tire, which you don't always get from OEM automakers. It also has a bunch of red accents on the interior, which do feel pretty cool. All the RS badging. It has rear cross traffic alert, blind spot monitoring, and even all-weather mats, which are usually optional packages on other vehicles. But the optional package that this has, which is about an extra $2,000, it does include the Harman Kardon speakers and the power moonroof, which just make it a little bit nicer vehicle and more enjoyable in day-to-day experiences. But I am kind of curious, why is there no window tint on the back half of this vehicle, like there usually is on the back half of most vehicles that are not the base model? Subaru, I think I found out where you're cheaping out. Between that and the lack of a spare tire, we know how they're keeping the base price down. And I do have to say, driving an Impreza compared to a Crosstrek that has about 3.5 more inches of ground clearance, you are going to have to be really careful driving over bumps and ruts in the road, speed bumps, and just garbage, gravelly roads like this, where there's a few inches of elevation change. You notice it a lot more in this vehicle, where you only have a little 40 width rubber band tire compared to something like a Crosstrek or an Outback or a Forester. So just keep that in mind, that you do have to be more cautious in a smaller, lower to the ground sedan or hatch like this. But despite all that, these are actually pretty fun to drive because they are a fairly small 5-seater vehicle. They're only about 14.5 feet long with about an 8.75 wheelbase, which is pretty substantial, making it planted. It's also about 5.8 feet wide, 4.8 feet tall, so it actually has a pretty good center of gravity, especially with the boxer block, how those horizontally opposed boxes are laid out. And then it weighs around 3,300 pounds, yet it still has the average 900-pound payload capacity that almost every Subaru has. It's not rated to tow in the United States, but having 900 pounds is nice. Unfortunately, even the RS trim level does not have roof rails from the factory. It has a 370 final drive ratio, and it can do a full circle in about 35 feet, meaning it's pretty agile, and it changes directions quite well. And then the last few things to mention here is when you lock the vehicle, the gas door locks. So you don't have to worry about the bums trying to siphon any of your 16.6 gallons of gas, which is the same size gas tank from the Forester and the Crosstrek. But this is rated for 26 city, 33 on the highway. I find that interesting because that's one less MPG around town than the Crosstrek gets, which is basically the same vehicle but with roof rails and more ground clearance. So it's kind of interesting why this gets worse MPG. I would assume maybe from these 18-inch wheels, which are wrapped in an Advid tire by Yokohama. It's an S34. It has around 9/32 of tread depth, which they actually look really substantial in person, kind of aggressive, which meets the profile of the tire and the overall vehicle appearance. But it's a 225/40/18. And then this is your key. It's the typical Subaru key. Proximity key feature, so you can leave it in your pocket when you go to open your door. But you have lock, unlock. You have hatch release. No power liftgate on this, and then panic button. So I'm just going to leave that in my pocket and we'll open the door right up. The driver's side door panel opens up really well, so there's a lot of room to get into the vehicle, but the door panel looks like all the other Imprezas and the Crosstreks. The same design, the materials are fairly similar, so even for being the most expensive Impreza, you still just have kind of a cheap looking cloth accent for the door card. I do like cloth in that I think it absorbs sound waves better, gives you a little bit more sound deadening than just more hard plastic, which is what you get right here. No fake carbon fiber thing like you get on the Crosstrek. You do have the Harman Kardon speakers though, so they are a nice upgrade over the base speakers, which don't sound great on this platform. But even the HKs, I wish these sounded a little bit better. I wish they had more depth. And then you have a bottle and a snack pocket. Nothing on the door sill. You have Impreza mats, which actually look really good. Of course, I wish factory mats went up higher, but that's just not something you're going to get OEM. And then you have really nice hybrid aluminum and rubber pedals. You have the hood release, fuse box, knee airbag, dashboard lighting, ventilation, lighting stock, leather wrapped wheel, and then red accents on these comfortable cloth seats that have an okay amount of bolstering, and a sunroof up top. And I do have to say that these seats, they are a few inches lower than the Crosstrek, so you do fall into them a little bit more than you would on the Crosstrek, and then you do have to be a little bit stronger to exit out the vehicle if that is a concern to you. Sitting inside the Impreza RS is actually pretty nice, but honestly, when it's all turned off, it doesn't look a whole lot different other than the red accents and the red leather stitching right here than any of the other Imprezas, or I should say specifically the Sport with the same screen, because the base, I already posted that video for the year as the dual screens if you want to check that out. But when we fire it up, the needles dance. The steering responsive headlights should do their thing. I think this is equipped with that. Has paddle shifters on the back. And these paddles, because it's only a 2.5-liter engine, I don't think they help a lot slowing you down from like interstate speed if you go onto an off-ramp and you're going 80 miles an hour and you want to slow down. But I'll show you some footage of me just going downhill and being in the second simulated gear. It actually kept speed really well. It helped out a lot. I just don't think it's worth over-revving the engine and putting too much heat through the powertrain because the engine doesn't have a lot of size and a lot of rotational mass like a V8 would. So I don't personally use the paddles much on the Subarus that I've owned with them, but this is the info. MPG is not very good because this vehicle has mostly just been idling. And then this is the 11.6-inch screen, has Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. You do have to turn off engine start stop every time, but this does not have cylinder deactivation like some other vehicles, so Good job, Subaru, for keeping that awful system out of here. But you can see, it's not always the most... Oh, I guess, sorry, I'm right there. I was looking at the widgets up here. My bad. But yeah, so it's not the most responsive anyways, but it does the job. And then you have wireless charger, you have some plugins. The backup camera is awful, but at least the lines move with the wheel, and you can see everything you need to. It's just not that good. The heated seats in this 2025 feel hotter than they did last year. That might just be my opinion, or the temperature, the ambient temperature, because it is kind of cold outside right now. But they do feel better than I remember in the past. You also have an electronic parking brake, 12-volt couple cup holders, carryover CD tray from the last generation, because Subaru didn't decide to fully reinvest in redesigning the center console. Hence why earlier I said this is more of just an upgrade to the last generation. But you do have a really big amount of storage in here with no plugins. This is optioned with the $400 compass. Garage door openers and auto-dimming mirrors. I love that feature. I wish my current Toyota RAV4 had that. And then incandescent lights. Incandescent light. And then a little bit of a slide. But with that said, let's turn it off and I'll show you how well I sit in the back seat. The back seats on these are actually pretty impressive because the doors open really wide. So again, even though the bench is a little bit lower than some other Subarus, this is about as little ground clearance as you get on anything. Even the BRZ might have this much or more. The door panel opens well. The materials are all black plastics, but at least you have a nice armrest. I think it's going to take some time though for that to wear in and get more soft and comfortable. You have a little bit of a step right here, just like you do on the Crosstrek, in case you had to get up to roof rails. This obviously doesn't have that. And then the seats are lightweight and thin, so they really don't take up a whole lot of room. I do have the driver's seat further back than I would normally drive, just for how I was filming earlier. But you can see they lay nearly flat, but then there's a drop in the back because there's no spare tire back there anymore like the last generation had. And you can tell, even with the seat fairly far back, there's still a lot of room. So let's raise it up and hop into the back. I'm 5'11", probably 190 pounds, and I have a few inches in front of my knees. The back seats do not recline. I don't have vents back here either, which I really wish I had, but there are a few plugins. And I do have an armrest, which is pretty sturdy, with 2 cup holders. Otherwise, back here, the windows are a little bit smaller than they were in the front, if you guys can see that. But it's okay. And I have a little bit of a cutout right here behind where the sunroof goes into the ceiling. So my headroom is actually surprisingly decent for a sub-compact crossover. And like I mentioned before, I love ice silver metallic. I own that color on my Outback Wilderness, and I thought it was fantastic. It doesn't show a lot of age, a lot of scratches, and a lot of dirt. I did run this through the car wash though, so it should be nice and clean. But the black and the red accents on the back of this, I just think they complement it so well. But there's no power liftgate. So one less thing to go wrong. You do have the PIN code right here. I have a video on how to set that. It's pretty cool to get into your vehicle without having the keys. And then back here, you have around 20 to 21 cubic feet of room, depending on how it's configured. When you drop both seats, you have about 55. So that's just about class leading for this type of vehicle. Again, the front seats are fairly far back. And then this is your privacy shade. You have the dog bowl, the dog snack bowl, and under here, there is only a fix-a-flat kit, which is probably fairly useless. I also don't know why there's a scissor jack if you only have that and you don't have a full-size spare tire. So some people do swap out the foam insert for the old one to get a spare tire. I would probably do that myself, but also I've never had to change a tire on the side of the road. So I'm not sure. It's up to you. Otherwise, it's fairly easy to reach and pull it back down. And coming around to the passenger side, you'll notice that the front doors, they both have the proximity key features to get into the vehicle without having the key out and about. You can just leave it in your pocket. And then the door panel basically is the same as the other front, but you don't have all the same electronic controls. You'll also notice that the backpack seat, it doesn't have the power controls either. Only the driver's seat gets those. But it still is heated. There's no transmission tunnel storage. There's no storage above the glove box. It's also non-locking. And it's fairly small. There's only enough for your basic papers, pamphlets, and something else. Comment what that something else is going to be. Otherwise, let me come around to the front. I'm going to pop the hood for you guys, and I'll show you what the RS is powered by. Under the hood is a 2.5-liter boxer engine. Makes 182 horsepower at about 5,600 RPM and 176 pound-feet of torque at about 4,400 RPM. But if a real live draft horse makes about 5 horsepower, this power plant is still the equivalent of about 36 real life horses. And it's pretty easy to do your own maintenance on because the serpentine belt's right there, the alternator, the AC compressor, top mount oil filter, all the reservoirs, the battery, the 2 fuse boxes, everything other than the spark plugs is pretty easy to work on. I do think that this might have the thermo control valve instead of the old school mechanical thermostat, so that might be a failure point, but Subaru has been extremely good at acknowledging that and giving 10-year warranties on the other platforms, but it's also not a very common issue. Otherwise, this one looks dirty, so it's probably done some off-roading. I don't know where that came from, but I do recommend you maybe consider putting some weather stripping around the hood to insulate this to keep it perfectly spotless once you buy it and it is clean, brand new. Otherwise, let's drop the hood, take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions of the 2025 Impreza RS. Let's get up to speed and see how this 2.5 liter does. From a roll in sport mode, it actually felt pretty good. You can feel it is a little bit sluggish right off the line, as you'll see in the 0 to 60 soon enough. But overall, this drives really good, just like the other Imprezas. The Sport Tune suspension really doesn't feel that much different. It still feels comfortable, just feels a little bit more direct. Even though you can't feel really any vibrations or input through the steering wheel, it seems to be connected really well to the road. There's not a lot of slop, and like a lot of other Subarus, the wheel doesn't have to turn very far for you to be changing directions. It is very sensitive, which can sometimes be a problem with the adaptive cruise and lane keep assist features. But overall, it makes for a better driving car, better driving performance e-Focus car. I love that you can see RS just so subtly in dark red on the instrument cluster. And visibility on this, just like the other Imprezas, just like the Crosstrek that's basically based off of this body style, it's all pretty good. The rear view mirror, you can see right down the center. The side mirrors are big enough. They're not overly focused on being so sporty that you can't actually see what's going on around you. And then here we're gonna take a corner. That actually felt like it stayed pretty planted, but I wasn't going that fast. And then partial throttle, we get right back up to speed. Actually, the CVT right now is shifting kind of firm. It feels kind of good. Not necessarily what I'm used to in a Subaru, but overall, this thing just handles really well. The problem is, it doesn't have a lot of ground clearance, so I can't just take off through a privately owned farm field if I wanted to. If it's yours, of course, that is, not someone else's. Like you can in a Subaru Outback or a Crosstrek or something with more ground clearance. I have scraped the bottom of these before on snow and ice in filming. I think that happened with the Red Sport I did a while ago. So the ground clearance might be a limiting factor, but traction is not. With this all drive system, you are just gonna hook your power to the ground and you are gonna take off, and it's gonna be pretty impressive. Let's see how these 18-inch wheels handle this bump. Ooh, that hit harder than I was expecting, and I'm pretty sure I was even under the speed limit right there. So this is a little bit sportier, it is a little bit stiffer. I highly recommend you guys test drive one for yourself before you buy one. But it does have heated seats, it does have some nice red accents. The seats are not super bolstered, but they are comfortable. They're thin, and I like them a lot. Anyways, guys, test drive one of these. Otherwise, I'm gonna go to my private road and show you what it does, 0 to 60. But everything about it, the driving perspective, everything you'd expect. I just wish I had more power from that 2.4 liter boxer engine. 0 to 60 in the Subaru Impreza RS. Keep in mind, density altitude is about 3,600 feet. So this is down on power, anywhere from 10.5 to 12.5%. Let's do a brake rev and see what it can do. And true 0 to 60 came in at 8.82 seconds. I was hoping for faster, but I'm not surprised because these usually do around that. My final thoughts of the 2025 Subaru Impreza RS is it's a good vehicle. I like the RS nameplate. I often think of Focus RS, which that's a hilarious car to drive, because RS hasn't been around in the United States for the Subaru lineup in quite a while. But this is a good vehicle. But this one, before the discount, if you go to a dealership that doesn't give you a good deal, it's 32 grand the way this one sits. And I just don't know if it's worth that compared to buying a Crosstrek that has more ground clearance that will eliminate some of the issues while still being basically just as fast 0 to 60 in my own personal testing at altitude. Or if you should consider for 32 grand, you can get a very nice Subaru Legacy. Heck, if you cough up a couple more grand, you could even get a Legacy Sport with the 2.4 liter turbo engine. That is a phenomenal car. So I have a little bit of a problem with this at the price point. If it was 27 grand, fully loaded, ready to go, I'd love it. Yeah, but for 32 or 30 without the optional package, I just think that that is getting to be a lot of money for only the 2.5-liter Boxer. Subaru and Toyota went through a lot of effort to make the high revving, naturally aspirated 2.4 in the BRZ. Why the heck is that not offered in here? Why the heck is that not offered with a manual transmission? The Impreza no longer offers a manual to begin with, but if they offered this with a 6-speed and the 228 horsepower high revving 2.4 liter, I would personally consider buying one. That would really represent RS well. But honestly, guys, these are just my random thoughts, my random opinions. I'm also kind of an extreme car enthusiast, so take that with a grain of salt. This is an awesome vehicle. It's well worth it. It's safe, it's reliable, it's efficient, it looks good, it's fun to drive. It has just enough creature comforts and tech to make you feel like you're driving something specialer than the average car. And with that said, if you guys got anything out of this video, please consider liking it. Comment your thoughts and opinions below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And test drive one, but also test drive the competition. Make sure that it is the right vehicle for you. And with that said, I wish you guys the absolute best. Hope you take care until next time. See ya.